Hey, this is Mark Goujon. It's March 17th, 2020. I am recording this with Sound Mind. And there are a few theories that I've been kicking around and pontificating, if you will, about for quite some time. So, thought I would just do a recording capturing some different thoughts and theories of within the realm of possible. I feel like at this point as a society, we feel like we have everything figured out. All the sciences are locked in, and theories of origins and things are pretty much ironed out. But there are different elements of our society and scientists that have started to explore into other realms that haven't necessarily been adopted. If anything, it's ostracized people, and just to throw out an idea or a concept that goes against the main sciences and beliefs that may have been established since like the late 1800s, and nobody really wants to counter what was said or discovered back then. So as we discover new things, I think there's a lot of things that we as a society, as a culture, as humanity, don't venture into really exploring the possibility of, because there are core foundational beliefs that are in place that make it so people won't even think outside the box or explore that. So I know there's the exceptions. There are definitely people like string theory and different things. So anyway, let me just go right into it from the big picture to some parts of our distant ancient history that we could possibly be coming from, and things like that. So first off, the sciences teach us about suns versus planets. And one thing that, I wonder to myself is, what if planets and suns are really the same thing? And, obviously different sizes. We can have extremely large planets. We can have brown stars. But what if at the core of it, each planet is made out of the same as a star, as a sun, and that we're at different stages of physical solidity, so how much material and everything has been there, gases versus that. But so that right there, just defining these massive bodies in the sky as two different things, we treat life and opportunity between a planet and a sun differently. But if we were to bin them all as, celestial bodies, what would that mean? So that kind of gets into another theory that there's the folks who are getting bombarded with videos and different theories on the flat earth theory. And you'll see a lot more popularity on feeds on flat earth. But there's really seems to have been a conscious effort, whatever it is, to really discount the hollow earth theory. And if you speculate and put into your thoughts the possibility of a hollow earth, which we can mean many different kind of things of what that actually would physically manifest as. But let's put it into theory that hollow earth is a possibility. open your mind to that as a potential possibility. That would imply that other planets, celestial bodies, are hollow as well. And if that were to be the case, then what would the implications be? The exterior shell of a planet may not be habitable, but if the internal aspect of a planet is a self-sustaining star that radiates its own heat, its own heart, its own whatever center core, that isn't molten lava, isn't solid, that's not gonna be a deadly hot certain thing, but something that can sustain life on the internal, then each planet in itself could have its own self-sustained ecosystem and not rely on its proximity and distance from a star, another celestial body that circulates. So that option of consideration, and there have been very few books and stuff that have been written on the topic of hollow Earth and hollow planets. If you look at some of the indications that show of a hollow Earth model being potential, the migration of animals heading north to where, if you're not familiar with it at all, it's believed to be north and south openings at the poles. And one theory on the hollow Earth is that if you think of like a piece of fruit, or in the case of like an orange, the outer shell, and then the skin goes in, well, the continent would wrap around, and what we believe to be gravity would be in the center, in between the two different surfaces, the interior surface and the exterior surface. So that part of things being that if there were a hollow Earth and there were occupants that could live in there, some sort of life form, they may be of a different stature, different physical dimension, as us, and maybe not able to live on the surface as part of one of the reasons why they're not on the surface. Maybe more sensitive to the influences of, in our case, our solar system, the external sun and the radiation. And so that's just one consideration, is celestial bodies being the same class, both sun and planet being the same thing, just at different stages, and then the possibility of a hollow Earth. Then what would that mean as far as other planets potentially being in our galaxy, in our solar system? So if you think of like a bee's hive, yeah, you may see bees on the exterior, but there's a whole thriving colony on the inside. And so whether it be a truly hollow planet, as the one potential option of a livable habitat of continents on the inside with water and different land structures, or a subterranean type of evolution of perhaps a different stage of humanity having gone underground with advanced knowledge and technology to avoid a catastrophe of either a world war scenario in our distant past, or some sort of cataclysmic event, the Ice Age, meteor showers, or something to that effect. So that would, if there were some sort of subterranean offshoot of our evolution, then you could see how potentially that could explain folklore like fairies and vampires, now modern day aliens and things like that, that if an advanced group that knew enough to create a subterranean environment, similar to, like, if you look at what we've accomplished as a society with subway systems and, you know, metros and things like that, that they made that a you know, bunkers or whatever you want to call it, on a large scale, and that the humanoid life that remained on the surface evolved differently to the harsh conditions, and again, not as sensitive to our external sun, that you could see that maybe they would be paler and more sensitive to the light, and be trying to do things to connect with their evolutionary cousins who were on the surface and trying to adapt themselves so that they could have their offspring be able to return to the surface. So, you know, I think that we put a lot of, for people who believe in external life outside of our planet, which I truly do believe that it would be, you know, to think that we're like the only life in an entire massive galaxy is kind of, would be, you know, less plausible than, you know, being the only intelligent life. So, but whether the distance between our other life forms that could coexist in this universe, again, if it's a hollow planet theory, maybe on other planets within our own galaxy, if the hollow planet or consciousness in different forms, so we may be more of a physical, solid consciousness, but life as we know it, more in the spiritual realm of what we would consider spiritual form, may be conscious life on other planets that aren't quite as solid, if the planet isn't as solid with materials. So, as to not say that there's not a consciousness that we don't understand that exists there. Okay, so through a lot of different things there, and that's kind of mixing some more, you know, modern more explanations for what we see for aliens now, that maybe they're not coming from some either really far destination that could be a lot closer within our own galaxy, or potentially under our surface in a hollow planet type of scenario, where they hadn't really forgot our evolution and the catastrophes, you know, that predate that, because they were in the safety of the internal part of the planet or a subterranean type of culture. Could explain some of the phenomenon we see with alien and how we've advanced as a society so fast. If we had, you know, during World War II, reconnected with, you know, this sect, this cousins of our, you know, our evolution. Also, a theory that, you know, that I kind of think with some books where I've seen about in our past has there been some sort of intergalactic war, and there's some, like Star Wars. Is that some sort of manifestation of our mass consciousness of recollection of inspiration? And there's like the Death Star. There's a moon that looks like what the Death Star was. So is that something that the Death Star was based off of that, consciously or unconsciously or whatever? So some theories that come to mind that have kicked around in my mind is, so you look at let's go back to the flat earth aspect, right? There was a big push there for why the powers that be that were in charge at the time would want to encourage people to have that belief of a false earth. Of a flat earth. You had a kingdom, and you didn't want people to go off exploring and leave the kingdom and never come back. The threat of falling off the edge of the earth, don't go off and explore too much, and you keep them as loyal subjects, would be an incentive for not wanting to encourage it, especially if you didn't want them to go and discover lands and resources that you were hoping to discover yourself. So during the Dark Ages and plague and massive death, when you're into survival mode of not dying from disease, there's the potential of generations losing a lot of the society's education and understanding of things, especially like with Rome, the libraries burnt down. Like how did that set us back as a society on our knowledge? Well, if the New World being discovered from the Europeans at the time not knowing that it was there, and going across the ocean to discover it, well, what if in our distant past that we were advanced enough to do interplanet travel, and that a part of our humanity came from another worldly source, and that we came from another planet, migrated here from a planet that was dying, that couldn't sustain life anymore. In this scenario, what if this planet was Mars? So if Mars at one point had an atmosphere that could sustain life, and knew that either that atmosphere was dying, or we were just explorers and wanting to venture to new world, there's the thing where the moon is thought to be hollow and not to really make sense, its size and proximity to our planet compared to other moons and the size of their planets. And when NASA had launched, I would say a missile, I don't know why they would have shot the moon, but they shot something or landed and hit the planet's surface, and the moon rang like a bell. And so if that's dust and debris covering a man-made or intelligent-made structure, and the size that it is, that how do we know that that wasn't the transport vehicle, and that made things by design teleform this planet to be sustainable? And I'm not talking like this happening 12,000 years ago. I'm talking like a long time ago, right? I mean, to have something like this, and that maybe parts of that original colonizing planet, of beings that came here were, at the core, a different type of originating ancient aliens. The whole theory of ancient aliens, they just came and left. I don't think they just came and left. I think that they had to adapt to this new planet. And if the Bible has any indication, when we talk about angels, and that then they had breeded with the daughters of man, that if these angels came from a different planet, let's just say, for the case of this theory, from Mars, came on the moon, and they're supposed to be observers and planting the seed of life, but there was some sort of indigenous life here. Say the conditions that the dinosaurs were thriving on weren't going to be sustainable, so they attacked the surface or changed the conditions in a way that it ended up killing off the dinosaurs. Let's say that there was some sort of humanoid life that was here, and they decided to DNA splice and create something that made it so that the conditions on life were more livable. And then we had, the Bible says, like, these offshoots of angel and human combined life forms. Well, say that their lifespan compared to the existing life was a lot longer, and they saw that the closer they were to the sun, living on the surface, that they couldn't stay alive as long. So, again, hollow earth, they went to the internal surface or subterranean to stay out of the sun. And again, the theories of the whole vampire, of something sensitive to the sun, the whole sucking our blood thing, maybe it was more of a medical way of taking our blood out and helping to keep the life alive with using the blood of either this new combined race or indigenous race. So, there's things that even the scientists are seeing now with, they call junk DNA and all this, that indicate like our DNA has been manipulated in a way to shorten our lifespans. We procreate probably faster than anticipated, but things that have people in the know, secret societies, or offshoots of keeping this knowledge, that have manipulated and shaped society and humans as we know it now. And maybe that those influencers are more in the know from our deep ancient roots of coming here. As what we have now for technologies would seem like magic over 100 years ago. So Wi-Fi signals, the cloud, downing, information stored that's not in a physical spot where you're at, it signals, radio signals, all these things that are advances in technology and that we've rapidly escalated on, that I feel like we've, as humanoids, as humans, have had these advances before and had major setbacks. So if around the world, pyramid structures that were similar, and the ability for us now to do international flights and everything. Well, if you could do interplanetary, of course you can go from different parts of the planet to different continents. Well, if we at some point, where society is so codependent on each other, if you lose that ability, it doesn't mean that we didn't at one point have that capability before some major catastrophic event, and where now we have all these plastics and advances with micro technologies, that all that is so fragile. If our TVs and everything didn't have electricity going to them and they're made out of plastic, in 30 years all that stuff would be like just garbage and everything. So if you didn't chisel it into granite or into stone, a lot of knowledge could just be lost because it's digitally stored now, and what's written on paper doesn't last. So
Can I see the back of that? Have a great one.
too, thanks. So it's, to me, I think that there have been different stages of advances where we've gotten set back and we forget our past. There might be pieces of it that lived on through the few that went underground or found another means to survive. And so anyway, that's one of my theories on that. Also, the electric universe, if you're not familiar, that talks more about magnetism versus gravity when it comes to the distancing of planets and the way that we measure how far planets are now based off of light and explosions. And there's some really smart scientists that can explain that more. And I don't, for everything else I talked about, if you've already been me in the cuckoo, crazy, bananas category of things for throwing these theories out, I don't want to take away the actual more proof-based theories that the electric universe has. So, but I would say explore the folks that have really put some time into building that group that follows that and propagates that idea, because what the Hall theory, with the electric universe theory has to say really does make the universe a lot more within reach from distance-wise, and it makes a lot of sense when it comes to what we don't know about gravity per se on a larger scale, on being able to reproduce how the galaxy and the universe and the planets interact with each other from a rotating around the planet and the sun standpoint compared to what would make sense from a gravitational pull standpoint. So it's just something I really watched a lot of the videos on that, which within that theory, I recall part of that was that a few of the planets in our galaxy are on a certain axis that share the same axis as Saturn, and that at some point Saturn and the planets that share the axis got pulled into by our sun as we know it now. And so a lot of things of like the worship of Saturn and those gods, and if with Mars being one of the planets that shares the axis, if Saturn was our body that we were originally going around, and now it's just become another planet in our solar system going around the sun, that there was that could have been a catastrophic level event, and that forced that migration from Mars to Earth. if, again, my theories on the whole us as a relocating here from Mars is not part of the mainstream electric universe theory. I'm just throwing that out as another potential theory. So anyway, these are some ideas and theories that I've had, and I just wanted to get it out my mind and record it in some sort of fashion. So it's there. And there's a lot of things, like I said, where people's minds are pretty closed and feel like we've got it all figured out, and then there's a part of our population that is open to the possibilities of things that explain why there's these ancient structures that are here on our planet that can't be built now off of our current understanding. Other things like alien sightings and things like that, so UFOs and all that. So I really think that there's a lot more that we don't know and haven't figured out yet, and we should, as a society, not immediately consider somebody nuts and try to destroy their character and everything, because so much of our sciences and things are already established and built a certain way, so we don't want to rock the apple cart, if you will. All right, I'm gonna leave it at that. Have a good one.